Welcome all of you once again to the program on systems engineering and applications. A course is sponsored by GYAN, Ministry of Education, Government of India. So I'm going to start the introduction section today. So we are in the module 1. As you have seen that Professor Pandey has already taken his session. So the second part of the introduction module will be covered by me. So in this section, basically, I'm going to introduce you about these following things. I'll introduce little bit about GYAN, the host institute, and myself. Then further, I'll be taking up the topics which are introduction to systems engineering, basic attributes of systems, and systems thinking. Though some of the content has already been covered by Professor Pandey, but I'll be taking up from the point where he stopped, and then we'll be discussing that how to develop basically the systems requirement, then what is systems dynamics, and then we'll be seeing that what will be the research papers and the books which you can refer for further understanding. So GYAN is GIAN. GYAN is basically the global initiative of academic networks, which as I already introduced you in the inaugural session also, that it's an initiative of Ministry of Education, Government of India. It is basically aimed to create opportunity to encourage the interaction and collaborations with faculty members. It will be extended to the scientists and the entrepreneurs from different other domains and different other countries. This initiative basically tries to inculcate the systems approach, and this will open up new ideas. This will definitely bring insights to develop some innovative products, innovative systems, innovative processes, and that is the major takeaway of this scheme, that it is a good opportunity in different kind of projects, in different kind of research, or in different kind of academic education system. So this will help all of us to work on the real life problems, and we'll get different insights on the things. So with this, I am going to introduce the Host Institute. Host Institute, where you are sitting today, is Indian Institute of Technology, Indian School of Mines, Dhanbad. So we are in India, in the Jharkhand state, right? And you see in Jharkhand itself, we are on the border of West Bengal and Jharkhand. And this IIT Dhanbad, or you can say the Indian School of Mines, is not a very new institute. It is there since 1901. I am delighted to inform you that we are in the running 100th year of this institute. So since its official inception in 1926, it was started with Indian School of Mines. Only mining related education and academics and research was there. From this particular IIT ISM Dhanbad from 1926 to 2025, and we are now 17 departments, and Indian School of Mines, or you can say the mining engineering department, is just one of the departments in the institute, and we are flourishing with different other domains, different other research work these days. So this is the introduction, that how we are moved from 1926 to 2025. So okay, so now about presenter, that is me here in front of you. So I would like to introduce myself to you, all of you, that I'm Dr. Shikha Singh. I'm working as an assistant professor in Department of Management Studies and Industrial Engineering in IIT Dhanbad. I did my PhD in Industrial Management Engineering from IIT Kanpur. Prior to that, I was working in Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, and I resigned from the post of manager. Then I did my bachelor's in engineering from IIT BHU. So this is how my academic introduction to you. Right. So now moving ahead, I'll be next presenting about the systems engineering. A new angle I'll be trying to show you, that which is not covered so far. Then the basic attributes of systems and the systems thinking, and how it is related to the practical angle of the systems engineering. So that I'll be taking further. So starting with systems engineering, as you all aware of the fact that systems engineering is an interdisciplinary approach, right? Interdisciplinary means it integrates several domains: mechanical, electrical, electronics, software engineering, and many other domains. So systems engineering is basically an interdisciplinary and integrative approach, right? Where which enables the successful realization or utilization of an engineered system. In within the domain of a systems engineering, we talk about the systems design, its implementation, its integration, its analysis, and the whole life cycle management of this of a system, and then other related components, subsystems, and other elements, right? So when I say systems engineering, it immediately brings a question to your mind that what do you mean by engineered systems? Engineered system should be a particular operational system that can function in the given or environment, right? So now the question is, what is system? System is basically, as I already told, system is basically an arrangement of subsystems and components, right? And when they work together, when they are linked together, they perform and they get operational in a given environment, right? If you see the individual constituents or individual components, they are useless. Useless in the sense they are not able to perform. They are dependent on some other components or some other input, right? So when you give input to some particular component, then only it will be able to function, then only it will be able to operate, right? So these attributes falls under the basic features of a system. So as Hitomi 1971 is he has written a very good book on manufacturing systems engineering, and these author has defined a lot of details about the manufacturing systems engineering. So from that particular thing, I have taken these 4 basic attributes of the system: association, interdependence, target oriented, and acclamation. So when I talk about association, association is very easy to understand. A few minutes back, I gave you an example as well, that if you are putting some components on the table, let us say I put a keyboard, I put a mouse, I put some wires, and I put some flap of this laptop, and then I say it should work. These are the components of the laptop, but they are not assembled. They are in the disassembly state. So the moment they get assembled and they start getting the input, and the output of the one particular subsystem may become the input for the other linked subsystem, and this is how all the components and subsystems starts performing, and they become operational to meet a goal, right? So here you see association is a system is formed by the associativeness of all the units, subunits, components, and other smaller elements. And when they come together, they link together, then only they will be called a system. There are several examples which you can see with an eye of systems engineer. One is a spacecraft, satellites, aircrafts, submarines, robots, cell phones. Many other things are there. Now let us say a robot. So when you talk about robot, you see there are industrial robots, autonomous vehicles, surgical robots, different kinds of robots. Why different kind, different names? All these robotic systems are having different names because the target is different, right? Right? The goal is different. There is associativeness is there. Then the interdependence, then only they linked and get the input and get the trigger to perform. The logics will be given. When you put the things together, units together, a logical interdependence exists, and that logical interdependence make it functional. And in this case we say that the target oriented means they should work together in coming up with the result which was desired, for which they all these subcomponents have been brought together to assemble together to reach a goal, to fulfill some requirement, right? And if that is missing, there is no point in talking about a system. Then it is a useless system. So the third attribute is target should be met, right? Then you see The fourth dimension, that is the acclimation or adaptation, right? Now you see the adaptability of a system. Some terms you might have heard about: customization. What do you mean by customization? Let us say you go to a market to purchase a car, right? And the car seller says that, okay, you're depending on your height, your chair or the seat can be moved up and down, front and back. All those possibilities have been given in the driving seat, right? Why? To make the system adaptable to the situation. If a tall person drives the car, the seat arrangements can be changed accordingly. If a short heighted person is driving, can be changed, or the change arrangement is made by considering those things. The way I've explained that, there are so many industrial revolutions are happened. Now when the technologies advancements are coming every now and then, it has become a very important thing to customize or to adapt with the changes, right? So here the technological environment means the technological tools are changing. So the system which you are designing, it should having the flexibility component, it should have the adaptability component. If it is not able to change itself with the technology or with the customer requirement, you should make the design the system in such a way so that it should be adaptable and it should be flexible. So they should be capable to change within the external environment and acclimate itself, so that whatever dynamic capabilities were required, that can change in the with the minimum response time, right? So that is the main attribute which has been introduced recently with the updation in the technologies. So if you see, for example, let us say the smartphones. So what are the smartphones? They are the some components I'm naming here: the processor, the RAM, then ROM, then the battery, then no display, camera features. Then you can say about speakers, microphones, or you can say some other sensors and other things are there in the smartphone. Maximum 1 to 2 years it may take to come up with a new version of the same brand. They change some features and they come bring up a new product to you or to the market. How does it possible? Because the designs are now flexible, right? Because the designs are adaptable. That is the very important reason behind the development of new innovations and new systems these days. Very small, this is a picture which I've taken from to showcase the complexity of the system. You see, if I remove just one pipe, you see these are fuel pipes, right? This is the aircraft fuel system. So this picture I've taken from this aircraft nerds.com. It is mentioned here. Complex net of the pumps and pipes and the wires and harnesses. It is really complex. If I ask you, let us say I go randomly there and I just remove one pipe from this complex system and I ask you to put it back, will you be able to? It's very difficult, right? So, though the systems engineer who is working there on the field can immediately do it, I may also try my hand in that. But I am just saying that it is this important figure is just to make you understand the complexity of the systems, right? We usually, when we do work on the paper or when we work on some modeling, we do not understand the complexity in that level. But when you go on the field and when you really perform all those tasks which you have planned in on papers or in the digital models, it becomes really very complex to identify and to rectify the things. If any one of the wire is disassembled, right, It may change the operation of the whole system. There will be a malfunctioning in the fuel system of an aircraft. So the complexity is very important to understand before proceeding into the systems engineering. So these no systems are I am showcasing to express the requirement of systems engineer and requirement of systems engineering these days. Though it is not a new domain, but it is limited to some of the domains these days. It's not very popular the way mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, and electronics engineering and other engineering branches are common. But people ignore this systems engineering domain, but that is very very important, right? Without that, systems engineering is basically a subset of industrial engineering, right? So coming to the next complex picture, or this is just a picture. You see picture is this much complex, so you can imagine the real time complexity. It's an electrical system of an aircraft. It is again downloaded from internet, and the reference is provided here. So you see, again it is a complex system, and in this complex systems you are able to see there are so many wires, batteries, valves, generators, then many sensors, looms, harnesses. So many components are integrated together to perform, to set up the whole electrical system of the aircraft, right? Now if I'm since at the starting of this today's session, I'm talking about the operational. It should be functional, it should be working in the given environment, it should be fulfilling the target. Okay, fine, but how will you measure? How will you measure? You see, each system is made up with an intention, right? And that intention is the goal, that this requirement I am fulfilling by this. So we will measure the system's performance with two major parameters, that is efficiency and effectiveness. These two are the major parameters. Depending on that, you may develop many more indices and parameters, right? So here efficiency is a term which indicates how well you are doing something. Let us say a battery is a component of the of the laptop, and there is a particular team who is which is developing the battery. They did all their best effort, they come up with all their best efforts, and then they designed the battery and they developed the battery. Okay, fine, very nice. But battery needs some input and needs to get some interface to showcase the outputs, right? So altogether it's just called a component. Another component, let us say wires or electrical arrangements, harnesses or looms, right? So there is a particular dedicated team in a company, and which is performing the designing and then the manufacturing, purchasing and other things. Right? So efficiency, as I told you, that efficiency is something how well you are doing something, right? Then you talk about, so different components you can efficiently design, but when all the components get integrated and then all are performing together, we will see the effectiveness of the work. Let us say battery requirement was of some particular X specification, and you created some Y specification which is not fit to that particular system. So this is how we define the effectiveness, how well the system is performing, how well the outcomes are coming, right? So what, depending on your achievement, basically at the end, what are is the system meeting the target or goal? If yes, it is good. If not, then it's a question mark, right? It means there is some flaw is there in the system, or in subcomponents, or in some systems where due to which the whole system is not capable of performing, right? So this system, measuring the system's performance is also one of the very important point in every company and in every product, to understand that how well the things are happening, what, how, how robust integration or linkages have been done, so that the required output or the required need is fulfilled, right? So here you see that, efficiency is basically, focuses on the input and output things, that how much you are giving the input and how much you are getting the output, and then you say that this is my efficiency. But when you say effectiveness, it is intending towards achieving the goal, how much goal you might have achieved, right? Input output may vary, but the ultimately there you have to be effective to reach out the goal properly. Right efforts in the right direction will be checked. If if you are giving the efforts, direction may be missed out, even then the efficiency may be better, right? But if you are giving the right efforts in the right direction, then only the effectiveness values may be changing, or then only you will be able to achieve the target. Then systems thinking, it's a very important thought. It's a thought, you see, it's a mental model. Systems thinking, so systems thinking is basically a process where we consider a system as a component of a bigger system, or I should rather say system of systems. So systems thinking is basically a thought process, and this is a process of considering a system which is a part of a bigger system, right? So if I say aircraft fuel system, or aircraft electrical system, or aircraft engine system, so though you see that I'm calling all these systems as a system, but when you assemble all these systems together, then only the aircraft system will be functional, right? So this is how we define that if I see a particular part as an individual component, it will be, that will not be the thought process in the systems thinking. The thought process is to consider as a part of the bigger system. You can say rather the assemblage. The assemblage is the major gist. We should understand that how the things are integrated, then only the bigger system may work. Systems thinking is a set of synergistic analytical skill set which you may utilize to improve the capability of uncover the systems. You see the insights within the systems. You can predict their behavior, and then you can modify according to your need, right? Then only the systems thinking may be shown or visualized, right? So that this is a definition given by Arnold and Wade. Actually, though these this is from their research paper, and in that research paper they have listed down several aspects of systems thinking, and then they tried to define what systems thinking is. So these two researchers have studied all possible definitions in the literature, and then they identified the systems definition keywords, that what are the gist, what is the reason why systems thinking, right? And how other researchers are trying to understand the systems thinking in their research papers. So they have developed, these are the some of the major components of systems thinking definitions. So this work has been done by Arnold and Wade. So here I am putting it in how things are linked, right? So then you talk about the interconnections and interrelationships. The very first dimension when you are thinking about the systems. Then whole as a whole system rather than a small individual component or part. Then the third dimension could be the system is structure. where am I, or where this particular component is there in the whole system. Belongingness to a system is very important. It's a very important dimension, that how this particular component gets belong to the whole system. What is its role, what is its importance, and if somehow it gets, there is a fault in this particular component, how the whole system will get affected. So that importance is very much required in the systems thinking domain. If we do not consider this kind of systems thinking, it will be very difficult to identify that exactly which subsystem is not functioning or not working properly, right? So the improvement will also be very difficult to brought in. So that is the reason the system structure should be understood very clearly about the behavior of whole system. Here the dynamic behavior is not about the movement, it is more about the functioning, continuous functioning, right? We try to understand the possible parameters and their impact on the system's performance, and we keep on understanding that with the time how my system will be performing. If this parameter will be changed, how the system's performance will be impacted or improved, right? So this is how the dynamic behavior of each of the components or subsystems is very important to be understood, right? Stock relationship means some input is coming from some outside environment or maybe some other system or subsystem, right? And then that particular parameter or particular capability is keep on improving or increasing. That is called the stock. The things are accumulating, right? And then there will be a flow means the depletion rate, or you can say the consumption rate. Whatever you are accumulating is actually reducing. So this is a way the inventory, and then the inventory supply, the product supply is the very common example of this stock and flow relationship. I'll be coming to this thing in detail little later. How will it be impacting the cyclic behavior of the systems or subsystems? So that makes a overall, these are not the all components of sub of systems thinking basically. These are just no, the major dimensions. So next I am moving towards how to develop systems requirements engineering. You must have heard about this term earlier as well in some of the engineering domain. Requirements engineering is something to plan or to understand the requirements of a stakeholder or of a customer. So requirement engineering is basically a particular methodology which helps to understand that what are the new things which we can invent, right? To understand the people requirement, users requirement, right? So with time, the requirements are required to be measured or to uncover, so that the new innovations or new kind of developments will be keep going. So the requirements understanding is the major foundation of the innovation basically. It helps to you see, requirements engineering is a methodology which helps us to explore and analyze the possibilities of innovation. Innovation of what? Innovation of new products, innovation of new processes, right? Innovation of new systems. But how? By understanding the needs. Whose needs? Customers' needs, right? By understanding the customer's need. Customer may not be a engineer, or customer may not be a technical fellow, right? So that person may be that person may be giving you the requirements in very vague terms, in form of some statements only, right? But it is the role of engineers here to understand and to create the documents by jotting down the technical requirements so well. If the technical requirements are not clear, the interdependencies of the requirements and tasks is not clear, it will become very difficult to really plan a bigger system, a complex system, right? You see, it is very important to set the specifications. Specifications help us to plan or to design the system, right? Specifications, or you can say the goal or the purpose which has been shared by the stakeholder, is very much important. It actually helps us to understand and to bring the detailed specifications so that we can design that particular system to fulfill the intended purpose, right? So that is how the this requirements engineering becomes a very important domain. When you say requirements engineering, people, I mean, you should ask that what do you mean by requirement? So I should rather say requirement is a condition or capability to be achieved by a user, and that helps us in different ways reveal the requirements to improve a system. Then it uncovers the features of a systems to design. What are the features which are required to develop a system to fulfill the required need? If the requirements which you are taking up helps you to unfold the necessary functions to operate, you just by listening you are technically defining that what should be there in a system to reach these goals, right? And then if you define the requirements properly, if the specifications are mentioned very logically, it will help you to minimize the errors. And when you are having the minimal errors, definitely it will be saving the money and the efforts and the scheduling and timeline issues. The most important thing is hierarchically defining the technical requirements and specifications, right? So that is also that is a major actually takeaway. When you do the requirements engineering properly, you will be able to get all the tasks, all the technical requirements very clearly. And by defining these things in detail, you will be able to understand the interdependence also, right? Then the constraints and limits. When we are taking the customer's requirement to develop a new system, we need to understand that there must be some limitations or some constraints of a system. Everything cannot be fulfilled. So, what are the constraints? What are the limits? Considering those constraints, limits, and boundaries, how I am going to develop the system to fulfill your goal, right? Then define the feasibility and flexibility of the system. So once you know the requirements very clearly, then only you can customize the system properly. And that will help you to develop the flexible designs, right? And that will help you to understand the technical interdependencies also. So when I'm talking about interdependencies, I would like to talk about one of the modules which I'll be covering. That is about dependency or design structure matrix. But just imagine a development of a complex product such as a spacecraft. Huge number of people are involved, right? Several teams are involved, and when there are multiple teams, multiple domains, multiple teams, and there is a possibility that one component of engine is depending on the one electrical input in the cockpit, right? Though the cockpit design is done by some other team, and then the fuel system and the engine system has been designed by some other team, but you see that because the belongingness is there in the whole aircraft system. So now you imagine that one particular wire or one input is required in the engine from the electrical wiring in the cockpit. So now this dependency is there. So likewise, there are multiple interdependencies throughout the systems, right? So those interdependencies may require to understand that which is to be built first or which is to be developed first, which task is to be completed in advance and which task is required to be completed later. So that arrangement or that kind of modeling will be required in the system. So after the requirements engineering, we'll say that we'll be understanding the arrangements of the interdependencies of the tasks and the modules, right? So that will be that I'll be calling as the dependency or design structure matrix, right? So in summation, I'll rather say that requirements engineering is becoming a systematic and the disciplined approach where we try to understand and document the stakeholders' requirements, right? And this we can do by managing the requirements and specification through different kind of documents. Now, when I say about documents, it clearly triggers my mind that managing the requirements in form of documents. How, which kind of documents? Papers, written papers or digital papers or what? So the documentation in industry for developing the systems is in form of models. What kind of models? The language which we understand may not be understood by the machines, right? And when you just imagine that a spacecraft is having huge number of systems, or you can say the system of systems, right? And when the huge number of systems are there, it is becoming very difficult to jot down the things in sentences. So that is the reason why we develop some models, and these model represents the requirements, right? And these model depicts that how the things will be done. Whatever things, whatever physics and mathematics is involved, we have to express in form of mathematical expressions, right? So when I'm saying model, it is a graphical kind of models where we utilize all the mathematical and physical representations to express the relationship between the subsystems, components and systems. So modeling a system requires applying formal rule. There is some particular common set of rules in modeling the systems, which is known by each systems engineer. And these kind of models actually simplify the representations, and the structure will be very clear that this is the model of one subsystem, this is the model of another subsystem, and how these two are communicating, and that things will be clearly shown in the form of models that actually covers the complexity. The visual representation of the complex interaction of two systems can be understood easily in the form of visual models, right? So though the long back, if I talk about, even when I was working, even then the huge sheets of models were there that on the papers. The engineering drawing you might have studied in your, if in your engineering, maybe in first year or maybe in second year. Mechanical engineers might have studied even in the third and second and third year also, right? So these engineering drawings and machine drawings are the 2D drawings, right? And that still exist in many companies. And people work on those 2D drawings. They open the sheets, the ED sheets are there, and then we see that how what this 2D design is expressing. But as I already told that we have developed, the technological advancements are are in peak, and with that we have we have moved from 2D modeling to 3D modeling. There are several tools for 3D modeling where you can develop your models and you can see the interaction of these models with each other. Even the dynamism or the simulation is such that the model will be 3D functioning, functional product will all you can also see that, right? So this is how the things are there with the changes in the technology. You may be finding out that how the things got advanced. So earlier we were using the document based approach. Earlier means I should rather say at least 10 to 12 years back, more than a decade from now. So here you see the various authors created numerous documents to describe the system design, systems behavior, then the security related matters. Everything is defined, everything is written in this particular software hardware. All components have been defined with a different perspective in the documents. But what happened that the electrical domain people have developed their own document. Electronics team have developed their own document, mechanical structural components, different documents, softwares, different documents. So likewise what happened, several documents have developed, and the interconnection of those documents was actually became really a big question, that how to manage these documents. It is very difficult to understand the interrelationships, right? So the 3D models came into the picture, the digitalization came into the picture to help that how to sort it out, how these this requirements management and systems development should be done. So then the digital modeling brought into the picture, the way this digital modeling brought up the way to understand, to design the model in such a way that it is very easy to identify the interdependencies, right? And all the inconsistencies got reduced, the errors got reduced, because digitally it was linked from one node to different other node wherever the linkages are required, right? And that verification got simpler. So when we are talking about models, development of models, 2D models, 3D models, documentation, digital documentation, or you can say the paper-based documentation. Okay, fine. So at the end, we found that today we are in the mode of digitalization, and we use the digital models to develop these, requirements engineering, or you can say that to develop the systems, we have the digital models. Okay, fine. Okay, fine. Models are very nice to hear. Very nice to hear this. But how? What is the language of models? What are the modeling languages? So that is also becoming a very important question. That the systems modeling language has been developed, though everyone utilizes this language as the base, and then they do some changes in this modeling language, but this is the basic foundation language which has been developed by INCOSE is International Council on Systems Engineering, and they initiated this kind of systems modeling language. And this modeling language was a common standard language among all the systems engineers. So that became a very well known and very established way of working on in the models, right? So this systems modeling language, or sysml, the sysml is a general purpose modeling language basically, and this is particularly used for systems engineering applications only. So this kind of modeling language helps to mention, to to create the specifications, to define that how the verification and validation of the specifications will be done, right? three categories of SysML diagrams are this SysML diagrams. When I'm saying, you see there are two components mentioned. Two confusing things are here. One is modeling and second is diagrams. People may say when you are saying modeling, it should be a 3D model. And when you are say diagram, it should be 2D diagram, right? Actually, when I'm saying modeling, it is still the 2D modeling. These modeling is actually 2D modeling, but it is in the different kind of different shapes are there, right? Different representations are there of the rectangles and of the ovals and different meaning of arrows. It's a different kind of way to jot down the statements in the form of models. So that we will see in the next slides. So again, I'm going back to the topic SysML diagrams. Diagrams, again, these are 2D models. These 2D diagrams they are. It's not the diagram of the product, it's a diagram of the systems engineering, that how I am going to engineer the system, the flow of requirements, the requirements, what is the logic between the components, what is the functionalities which are required to cover in this particular system. That systems engineering models will be there, right? And the diagrams means again 2D diagrams only, not the 3D diagrams or 3D models. So we will be showing the requirements diagram. Requirements diagram, you see, to present and showcase the system requirements, right? These diagrams are again some shapes I'll be showing you. Then there's structure diagrams. These structure diagrams basically develop the physical and logical structure of the system. Then the behavior diagram. Behavior diagrams are used to express the dynamic behavior of a system, right? How the things will be functional. The functionalities or the operability of the systems will be defined using the behavior diagrams. It is just an expression for the flow of requirements, for the flow of the functionalities, for the flow of the logics, right? And one more term I would like to introduce here itself, that is the system architecture. When I'm saying about the system architecture, architecture actually refers to the high level structural design of a system. The basic outline, you can say, that how things will be working together, right? So this architecture basically outlines the components, its interactions, behavior, right? And in systems engineering, it manages everything in the life cycle of a system, right? So if I conclude, I will say that the systems engineering is basically helps to manage the system from its requirement generation to conceptualization to its development and utilization and all. But the architecture is basically to develop, this is the systems architecture, that is the blueprint of the system. And when we call it that it should be flexible, it should be able to customize, it should be adaptable, what does it mean? When we are when we having the major basic foundational blueprint of the system, it will be very easy for us to change few things, tweak some things there, right? So that is the reason that the products are coming so soon in the market these days. Just a gap of 1 year, there will be new model of the same product, right? Then they keep on revising the features and then keep floating or introducing the new product to the market. Why and how? Because the systems engineering has been deployed so well that the systems blueprint is there always, and it has been developed. The systems engineering systems engineering concept has been applied so well that the system is flexible, it is adaptable, the design is flexible, And when the design blueprint is there in form of models, sysml models, it is very easy to change the things and it takes a lot lesser time than earlier. So that is the reason why systems engineering has been taken a very special place in the industries and in the product development and in the systems development also. Right. So, as discussed in the modeling language, it becomes a curiosity that, okay, fine, we know the models now, and we know that how to develop the model based documentation, digital documents to suggest what are the requirements in the systems, how to design the systems, how to make it flexible. Okay. So, that can be done by using model based systems engineering. Though it is a subcomponent of the systems engineering domain itself, it is well known with the name MBSE, right? So this MBSE is a particular domain, upcoming domain of, you can say, I mean, many people are using it. As I already explained, that MBSE is proposed by the NCOSE, right? So the ideas which are combined in MBSE is systems thinking, systems engineering, and models. So far we were studying systems engineering where we were not understanding that how to express the requirements. So late now we understood there should be some models to express the requirements, to manage or to plan the whole system, right? So the MBSE is something which integrates the three thoughts: the systems thinking, thinking as a whole, not as a piece, then systems engineering, all concepts will be considered, and then the models will be involved to jot down the requirements as a whole in a logical sequence, right? So MBSE basically supports in development of complex systems. If a small system is there or a simple standard product is there, it may not need any kind of requirements management. But when you are moving towards the complex products like submarines, spacecrafts, aircrafts, robots, right? The more complex product is, more is the requirement of MBSE. Then it helps to formalize the requirements in form of models. It helps, the MBSE systematically helps us to understand the functionality of a system by just seeing the models. The architecture is developed in such a way of a system so that you can understand the functionality of the system by seeing the model itself, right? And then development of the required system will be strategically done in the through MBSE. So the MBSE is basically, in conclusion, if I would like to say what MBSE is, I'll say MBSE is a basically a modeling methodology or technique which helps the systems development framework. It uses a different kind of, it's a kind of logical approach which is used to organize the structure of a system. MBSE is, it develops a unified digital model which serves as the most reliable source to track where we are in the system, which logic is fulfilled, which logic is still left. This helps us to track the specification and functions, right? So this is how the MBSE, this is, no, it's when I'm just explaining in words, it will be really very difficult to understand, I know that, right? But the major thing which you have to understand now is, because we are in the foundational module, you should understand that there is some domain where we are using systems thinking, systems engineering, and models to manage our requirements, to manage or to define the needs properly, to define the systems, components, subsystems, tasks, and their interdependencies, the logics, the functionalities. Everything will be developed in the digital documents in form of models that should be known to you by now, right? Slowly we are going deeper. How MBSE connects the system attributes. Why it is becoming so favorite among the systems engineer these days. MBSE is a component of a systems engineering or industrial engineering itself, right? So MBSE, you see, it connects all the four basic features which you need to understand in the systems development. One is the functionality. What are the functional requirements, right? Then the what are the logics? How will you connect the components and subsystems or subcomponents together? Then the third is how they will be connected in the physical product or physical shape, right? How they will be looking like. So physical shape here you can say the prototype, right? So the first prototype will be seen that after applying all these things, how the things will be seen. So this MBSE uses the RFLP approach, which connects all the requirements with functionality, the logic, and the physical attributes of the system. When you utilize the MBSE, it helps you to showcase, or you can say prepare a flow chart that how this whole system will be working logically and in the right direction. That is a blueprint, that this is how the systems map, you can say, that the things will be worked in this way. The position, the location of the systems, subsystems, components, and their functionalities will be mentioned in this MBSE models, right? That concept is called RFLP approach. The requirements, as I already discussed, requirements are define the contextual needs through the stakeholders input. Is stakeholders input may be in any form, it may be some verbal statements, it may be some videos, it may be some images with which the stakeholder may express his or her needs, requirements, right? But depending on the target of the stakeholder, a systems engineer has to develop the operational and functional attribute of a system. Then the capability perspective, if you see, so then you have to define the functional architecture outlines, what the system must be able to perform, right? Then the system's implementation, what are the logics, which subsystem will be coming after this, or which will be connected with each other, or which should not be connected with each other. So that logic should be clear to develop the system. Then the last is the physical structure comprises parts and software. The implementation guidelines should be clear, right? And then the physical, the P part is actually helping to develop the digital model of the actual product, right? It can be a 3D presentation, or you can say a 3D model of to visualize the physical significance or the physical features of a system. So this RFLP approach, actually you see, it is starting from requirement, then it is managing the logics, then it is managing the functionality, and then it is managing that how the physical structure will be looking alike, right? So you see, it is managing the whole life cycle of a system from the conceptualization up to the physical development of a product. So this basically the MBSE model follows the RFLP approach. The RFLP is again mentioned here. R is the requirements, F is the functional, L are the logics, and the P defines the physical structure. Physical structure can be a digital model, can be the 3D model of a final product, right? MBSE manages the system's life cycle. It uncovers the requirements of a system throughout the life cycle from the conceptualization phase up to the product development state, that the final product should look like this, but the real time manufacturing and other things will be coming into the separate domain, right? That comes then the role of product engineers or the production managers come into the picture, right? So they here the physical means you have developed the digital models of the final or physical structure of the product. So with this, I'll say the MBSE is something which promotes the conceptualization of product definition, defining the product in so detail, right? To develop the system architecture, and then it gives the complete product control through digital representation, or you can say the early design optimization. When you know the things in detail, then only you may apply the optimizations. Where can I reduce the efforts? How shall I arrange the dependencies and interdependencies? How shall I design the structure so that the design can be completed in minimum time and minimum efforts, right? So this is how the MBSE guides organizations through all these connected engineering practices, and this helps to facilitate the development across all multiple domains. If I say RFLP, okay, fine, very nice. MBSE, very nice to hear. Can you do all alone? Let us say you are an electrical engineer, right? Yes. And now you tell me that will you be able to complete all this RFLP mode on your own for a spacecraft? No. Straight away, no. Multiple skill sets are required of different domains, right? So when I say a system, now remember that engineering institute. So each nothing can be understood as a silo. A software engineer cannot do anything with the softwares he or she has developed without the tangible product of the laptop. Laptop is you see, it's a tangible, completely manufactured product. The screen, the keyboard, the wires, whatever is there in it. And if you manufacture the laptop so beautifully, and without the software component, it will be all failed, right? So the belongingness to each other is becoming very important. So because the definition of the product is also changed over the years. How? Long back, if you remember, I mean, in your childhood maybe, that there was a kind of mechanical car, no screen, no digital screen was there in the cars, right? The pointers were there and it was showing you that how much kilometers left, or the mechanical structure of putting the wires to connect something. Mechanical, electrical, or electronic systems were there. The digital modes were not there, no software component in the car. But today you see, you can watch the movies, you can see the pictures in the car, you can see the digital screen, you can have the rear cameras, front camera images will also be visible in the digital screen. How much kilometer to left, what is the petrol level, everything will be mentioned in the digital screens. So can I say without the digital screens, or digital screens are basically the software component of a system. So without those software system, the tangible component, the tangible products are inefficient, right? And without the mechanical system of the cars, the software will not be applied anywhere, right? So this is how the interdependencies, or you can say the products are uh, the hybrid products these days, right? They are not absolutely tangible and not absolutely intangible. These days, all products are having some software component and some physical component. So that is the reason why these days all the products are hybrid products, right? So that this MBSE will be very beautifully reflecting the requirement of the systems. So now moving further, I'll be discussing about the system dynamics. Understanding the system dynamics. So you see, when I'm talking about system dynamics, it means there are various factors in the system which are impacting the system's performance, right? Air conditioning system, you just imagine. If I fluctuate the voltage, the performance of the air conditioning system may vary, right? If the input of the power is changed, then also the performance may vary. So the performance of a system depends on several components or several other factors, right? So when we study all those factors and then when we try to understand these impacts on the system's performance, then it is called the system dynamics. How the system's performance is changing with time when I'm changing the parameters on which it is depending, right? So here you see system dynamics is a type of simulation which is based on the mathematical interrelations. The temperature is increased, the performance of the air conditioner may reduce. There are some heat equations which are depending on which are having several other parameters into it. So system dynamics basically helps you to understand that the how systems performance is changing with time with respect to different parameters on which system performance depends, right? So system dynamics is a type of simulation based on mathematical interrelations of all the components on the system. If one particular component is changing its behavior, or the capacity or the performance of one particular component changes, how it will impact the performance of the overall system as a whole, right? That thing requires to be checked. If some battery gets discharged, how the electric vehicle will be performing. If there are two batteries, if the both of the batteries get this keep on discharging day by day, how the EV no electric vehicle will be performing with time, how the performance will be impacted. So these kind of performance may systems performance will be depending on various other components and parameters. And if any of the parameters gets changed, how the system's performance varies. That studies comes under the category of system dynamics modeling, right? And this kind of simulation modeling helps us to understand the behavior of a system and understand that what is that exact parameter which is going to diminish the performance of the whole system. By doing the system dynamic modeling, you will be able to uncover the critical elements in the system which improve or deteriorate the system's performance. System dynamic models actually help you in understanding to make some decisions that what kind of changes in the design or what kind of changes in the organization or in the processes we need to do so that the performance of the system will not be impacted. Or one other angle to see this, by doing the simulation modeling in for the system dynamics model, we will be able to understand that these are the parameters which are impacting the behavior or performance of the whole organization. Organization is also a system, right? Yes or no? So here actually we are now entering into I'm introducing a new thing to you. Just before the system dynamics, I was talking about the development of engineered systems, right? Here just little, it is again related to systems, so I'm introducing this to you. I'll be going into the detail also in the upcoming sessions. we always try to understand that what are the parameters which are actually diminishing the performance of the organization. It can be any industry, or it can be any factory, it can be any small or bigger system, right? So the overall performance of a system or of an engineered system is required to be understood. How the performance gets impacted, to understand the performance impact and to understand the overall behavior of a system, we do this kind of simulation, and we run the simulation over a long period of time to understand that what kind of impact is getting on a dynamic behavior of the system, right? Then you see the behavior of the systems component helps to understand the overall behavior of a system, right? Then the systems engineer finds feedback loops and causality patterns, that this causes this, right? Or there is a cyclic behavior or feedback loop is there. So in closed systems, a feedback loop exists. Feedback loop is a cyclic kind of loop where one information is going and getting back to the same parameter, or input may be affected due to the change in output. In such systems, the problem is perceived. Each action influences the result, and the result influences the further action. That kind of cyclic behavior will be there in the system, right? So if you see that in this particular, the diagram is shown here. In this diagram, we'll run this kind of simulation model in the upcoming sessions also, right? You see how the system's behavior is changing with time. In the initial months, it is improving, and suddenly after the fourth month, the performance of the system has been increased a lot, right? So this is how there are some parameters which are actually affecting the system's behavior, and that we would always like to understand, because if we get those particular parameters, we'll able to enhance the performance immensely, right? Or we can say that these are the critical parameters. We have to take care of these systems well, or these parameters well, so that the overall performance of the system will not be deteriorate with time, right? So I think with this I would like to thank you for the day. So I think it was introductory module which we have seen today. In the upcoming sessions, I will be talking in detail about MBSE modeling. Then I will be talking about the system dynamics modeling, and then I'll be talking in detail about the this dependency or design structure matrix also, how these things are important. Whatever I'll be covering in the module 7, 8, and I think 8, 9, 10, these all three modules have been created or crafted in such a way so that you get the application angle of the systems engineering. So up to module 7, the major the systems engineering concepts and systems engineering details will be covered in detail, and after that, from module 8 to module 10, these three modules will be dedicated to the application part of the systems engineering. So, as I introduced some of the things today, MBSE, model based systems engineering, system dynamics modeling, requirements engineering. Then I introduced about the dependency and design structure matrix, right? So, these things I will be covering with some hands on examples in upcoming sessions. So, thank you for the day.